Well, I think almost everyone in big tech is saying something like Jensen Huang says here that kids shouldn't learn to code or engineers are going to be replaced by AI. And I think they're probably not wrong, which is why I'm making this video today. I have been programming since 1999 when I wrote my very first line of code in my 11th grade chemistry class. I've been programming professionally since 2004. The reason I want to make this video today is I've been thinking a lot about the future of engineering. Those of you that don't know, I've actually held roles from unpaid intern to director level. I've actually been CEO, president, roles like that. But most of my career has been spent in a very technical job. CTO, lead engineer, architect, those types of roles. And this is the first time in my career where I think my view on how you progress in the industry has actually changed dramatically. And what I want to talk about today is I don't completely agree that kids should not learn to code. I just agree they need to learn different things now. So I want to go through that and really talk about why everyone needs to become a product engineer. And if you are just getting into engineering now, or you're only a year in and you're an associate, this is so important for you. So the first thing I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about your typical path as a software engineer. I like to always think about it like this. When you are a new engineer, you're working within usually a pretty big system, right? So this is the system you're working in. And I'm oversimplifying this for terms of illustration because I've worked in systems that are, multifaceted. So let's just say for simplicity, this is the entire system that you and your company is working on. You are probably some little teeny part of that, and that is the ticket. You're doing a task. And maybe what you see in that task is like this, right? You can see a little bit around it, but you don't see a whole ton. As you progress in your career, you start doing larger and larger things, and you start seeing bigger and bigger pictures. So, this might be a mid level, and then eventually you get up to senior, and you're able to see, a little bit bigger here. And the whole time, though, you're relying typically on like some sort of PM, or you're relying on some sort of acceptance criteria or something kind of guiding you. You're using them as your product knowledge. There are roles that actually expand beyond that. So I would say there's like architecture roles, staff engineer roles. So let me just kind of illustrate that. Let's just say this is staff engineer. You see a huge picture of what's happening in the entire system, and that's great. But there's another facet to this that a lot of people forget, and that's this system is accomplishing some business goal. So if you think about this in multiple dimensions, right? So you have your system, and this is your business goals. This can include things like, ultimately the business needs to make money. So how does this little ticket that you're working on drive you to helping your business make money? Because that's how you become valuable to these organizations. So as you are doing your work and you're moving up, you're becoming more and more valuable because you have more of a picture of everything in this left box. Eventually, you get to a point though where the two things start merging together. So I've shrunk these boxes down. So you have your system and you have your business. And I've totally oversimplifying this, and I get this, but it's super important to kind of understand. And if you think about it, this is the associate engineer. He's kind of working on this thing. I think the future is this level of visibility, where you actually have a bit more business view than you do system view. So you're actually understanding more and more, and you're going to just see this get bigger and bigger, right? So this is going to go up like this, and eventually, and ultimately, you're going to end up in this perspective where you've got a really good view of why you're building what you're building, how it impacts the business, what's the persona, what's the problem that you're solving. You're going to understand how to actually get things done. You're going to talk to customers. You're actually going to talk to them and get feedback from them. And then that's going to help you drive this. So hopefully this makes sense. I'm going to clear this now. So this is, if I would say, the traditional way. This is how you traditionally advance. This is what I think the new way of advancement is. You are going to have a lot more business context. Now, let's talk about traditional Scrum teams for a second. The traditional Scrum team is typically made up of something like this. We have a PM. Typically, you'd have something like a junior dev. Every team is different, so please don't take this as like gospel. But this is like when I've designed teams for some of the companies I've worked for, you try to balance it out like this, right? So you got senior, and then you probably, sometimes I'd have like 15 or 16 teams of engineers. And then what you typically do is you share some roles too. So this could be like a scrum master and they're managing two teams, or there could be a designer and they're working across two teams. Again, every company does this different, and not everyone uses scrum teams. Typically, some people do Kanban, some people do other things. It doesn't matter, but typically you have some sort of team. This is what we have now. I think what's a lot of people are predicting is that this goes away and this goes away. But I don't think that's totally true, because if these two go away, and if we think about it in the traditional terms, how do we ever get seniors? How do we ever get architects? You can't just go to school and come out an architect. You literally just cannot. But I think they're right that honestly, the whole idea of this team makeup actually goes away. And what we end up with is a product engineer. And the product engineer is going to hold like, it's basically going to replace almost an entire Scrum team. So we're going to see a consolidation from, this entire team building one thing to a product engineer with a little bit of help from a designer. And, maybe typically you'd have QA in here too. I don't want to leave them out because that's super important. You want that as part of your team. You might have a little bit of help with QA. You might not actually. Depends on how this actually evolves with AI going forward. This product engineer, they are technical. This is super important. Like they need to be able to debug. Like to me, I think debugging is going to be more important than being able to write new code in most things that are being built. But they are also very, very conscientious about the business. So they understand more about the business. And that is rare in engineering. Now, to give you some perspective, I've interviewed hundreds of people. I've worked on tons of teams. 20 years you do a lot of engineering. And I will tell you the number of engineers that I've ran into that are, personable. But I don't mean that in a bad way, right? But they're the type of people that want to be outgoing, go talk to customers, want to kind of like think about the product. It's pretty low. Think if you're working in this field, how many engineers do you know that are like that? I definitely know some. They're excellent. They become the most valuable. But a lot of them just want to code. They want to be given their acceptance criteria and just sit down and start coding. But that's not going to be the case in the future. What we're going to end up having is like large features. So people are going to be building these large features. And these large features are going to be handled by one or two product engineers. Now, you may ask, and this is like the most important thing, could you think about the scope of visibility? When you're first getting going, your scope of visibility is kind of like a triangle. As you progress, it gets wider and wider. So you're seeing more and more. And eventually you're seeing across teams and you're doing more impactful things in the organization. So for example, a traditional, if you've got the two Scrum teams, so let's pretend this is a Scrum team, this is a Scrum team, this is a Scrum team. You might actually have a staff engineer that sits across three teams and kind of helps make sure these three teams are coming together properly. You might not, it depends on the setup. And the reason for that is before we've got people in here like working on these like small things, and no one's really Or very rarely someone's like looking at the big picture. So that's where this person comes in. They're looking at the big picture. Now, what makes this incredibly challenging is if you go to college, today you're learning basically all the stuff that we've learned for the last 20 years, right? Doesn't change that much. Yeah, we've introduced like mobile development, stuff like that. So you go into college, you're getting a degree, and you're going to come out and are you going to be a product engineer? The answer to that is no. You're not going to be a product engineer. So I think the curriculum has to change. So if you're going to college today, I would think about this a lot. And the reason I say that is because of AI, a product engineer almost becomes his own team working with AI, 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 AI. So this could be, different models you're working with. This could be agents that you're working with. So you basically become this powerhouse because you have all the knowledge, but you need to be able to guide it. You need to be able to point it to the right, you got to point it to the right file. You got to like kind of understand when it goes off the rails, like keep it on track. And how do you get this knowledge if you're a 22-year-old that's coming out with a degree and you don't have any of that? So I think there are a couple ways. I think the one way is like you need to like if you're going to college now, you should understand AI like the back of your hand. You should be better at AI than I am because it should be like everything that you do, you should be learning how to talk to it. You should be learning how to use it to actually accomplish your goals. Anything you do, it's just not going away. If you have a chance to learn I don't really care what your teachers say in school. I'm gonna be honest with you because your grade at the end of the day, it really does not matter. After you get out of college, you fast forward 3 months of working, no one asks about your grades anymore. What they're going to look at is what you can actually do. And what you're going to need to be able to do is actually use AI. And you're going to need to be able to use it to actually create not a little ticket. You're going to need to be able to start wider right out the gate. You're going to need to have a bigger view of both business and tech from day one. I think the curriculum has to change such that to be a product engineer, we need to figure out what needs to be taught in college to make this successful. My theory is there are a couple things. My theory is one, business. I think business degrees I think could be very useful because a lot of engineers don't have the concept of how a business works, how it runs, why it's important to do certain things. I think maybe even interning as a product manager, if you can find a role to do that while those are still around, try to get in and kind of understand how product managers work, or even like just deep dive into the mindset of a product manager. I think you're going to have to get comfortable with talking. You're going to have to be okay talking to customers. You're going to be okay interviewing them. You're going to be okay listening to them when they complain. This is very hard for those of us that are introverted. And I am one of those people. So it is tough, but I have done that. And it really changes the way you think about everything when you can have that direct communication with your customer, the person you're solving the problem for. And then I think the best other way is to start a business because if you're starting a business, you're probably, and I'm going to be totally honest with you, the odds of success it's like very low, um, very low. But the education that you get from that is worth gold. I've had a few very, very tough businesses that I've started that have failed, and I learned more from those failures than I did at any other point in my career. I learned how a business ran. I learned how to hire people. I learned how to sell. I learned how to talk to customers in a way that actually made them comfortable and I could actually get them to open up and talk about the problem they wanted to solve. I've also had some very successful businesses, but my first one was not a success because I didn't know what I was doing. but I learned so much. So if you have the opportunity to be in an early business and at a role where you can actually have an impact, I would recommend doing it. Because a lot of people, again, they think about things in this really small microcosm. They want to come into work, they want to sit down at their computer, and they want to just type whatever this thing's telling them to do. That's not the way the world's going to work when we get older. 3 years from now, I have a feeling we're going to see less and less Scrum teams that are set up like traditional ones, and we're going to see more that are very focused on product engineers. You're going to get interviews that are more focused on how you can break apart problems, how well you use AI, because at the end of the day, and I'm gonna close up here quick. I know this is getting long. I'm gonna tell you something that may hurt some people's feelings, but code does not matter. And as someone that has spent most of my life coding, when someone first told me this, I was told this in like 2005. It hurt my feelings. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I was like, I'm spending, so I'm gonna tell you a story. So at the time, I was pretty new in the game industry, and I was working on a level select screen, and I built the most bad, like awesome level select screen that you could imagine. And I was so proud of it. But it turned out it was not useful. When we tested it with users, it just, the design that the designer had come up with was just not good. But I was so proud of this. And when they told me that we needed to throw it away, I was so sad. I remember like my face, like feeling like I just became very flushed. I was just very upset. And my senior engineer at the time told me, he's like, hey, don't feel bad about this. Like, code does not matter. What matters is people using it. You're going to write so much code. I think he told me, I don't want to like put the wrong words in his mouth, but he told me like 80% of the code I write is going to get thrown away. People using it, solving problems, that's what matters. And as much as we want to resist the idea that AI is going to take our jobs, I just want to call this out that AI is not going anywhere. It it is here to stay, and it is very clear to me now that it's going to replace a significant part of what we do. So if we think about it from the kind of that split box that we were talking about before, if AI is doing most of the grunt work, so our context can be lifted up, product engineers, they're never going to have 100% visibility in everything. You just can't. There's only so much cognitive load you can have as a human. But what you can do is you can have a much bigger view of understanding the business goals here and the tech. And the people that can actually bridge this are product engineers. And they are the ones that I don't think are going to be replaced anytime soon. I can tell you right now that if you were to go and give AI to like my wife and you were to tell her to go build an application, she could get some of it done, but she would run into one problem and not understand how to get through it. There is going to be some level of this that needs to be around for a while. Now, how long does product engineers last? I do not know, because I feel like this is the first time in my life that I'm unclear on the overall path. I just know the traditional engineering path is kind of gone, or will be shortly. We're going to see probably 50+% of code written by AI. And then before long, that's going to be 75%. And then before long, it's going to be 90%. So where's the skill if the code is being written by AI? The skill is in guiding the AI to write the right things. The people that do that the best are going to be the winners here. And again, if you are just now learning to code and become an engineer, prepare yourself. You are going to need to like start thinking bigger. If you are on a team right now You should do everything in your power to start filling your gaps with AI, understanding AI and how it can help you be a better engineer, a better product engineer. But you also need to understand the business. You need to learn everything you freaking can about the business. Why are you building the thing you're building? How much revenue is it going to drive? Who's the personas of the people that are going to be using it? Why are they going to use it? Get in their mind, like being able to understand that, like, yes, they would want to use this because XYZ. Use it from their perspective. You got to think about it. I work with so many engineers in my life that they stay very much on this bottom corner here. This is the part when they say engineers are going to be replaced. I think it's true. And as sad as that is, I've come to this realization over the last probably 6 months that I think it's very true. I think over the next 3 years, this part will be gone. I think we'll still have some people that are just exceptional, that are very much focused on the tech side here. But I think the most valuable people are like, how big of a vision, how much can they understand across both? Anyway, I would love to understand how you guys think about this. I do think it's very important, even if you don't agree with me, to think about how it's going to change your career and make sure you're prepared for it. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope it at least has you think about how coding is going to change over the next 3 years. And I don't think it's going to be long. It's just advancing so darn quickly. I would love to actually revisit this in 3 years just to see where we are and how far off I am on my prediction. Anyway, I appreciate you all. If you don't mind giving me a like and subscribe, that would mean the world to me. And please comment below. I want to know where everyone else's head's at, because we're all kind of in this together and it's changing so quickly. And I would love to hear other perspectives because it gets me to think about other perspectives as well. Anyway, until next time, guys, peace out.